The Center for Architecture for the 71st installment of the AIA Architecture Dialogues Committee, Cocktails and Conversation. I'm Gregory Schweitzer, President of AIA New York, and it is my great pleasure to introduce both Matt and Fred tonight. Now, a little bit about our guests of honor. Fred is no stranger to these conversations and have participated in several of them previously. He studied architecture at Princeton University and law at NYU and writes about both subjects. He is the 2009 winner of the Stephen A. Klimt Oculus Award, which he is incredibly fond and proud of, which is given by the American Institutes of Architects for Excellence in Architecture Writing, and a 2023 Arts and Letters Award of the American Academy of Arts and Letters, which is noted that for more than 30 years, his writing has stood for integrity. He's been called a true Renaissance man and has a long list of accomplishments, which include authoring plays and being a finalist for the 9/11 Memorial. He's also working on a memoir, A Life in Boxes, and I do hope that he would share a glimpse of this tonight as the evening progresses. With Matthew, he's the immediate past president of AIA New York and founder of Architecture in Formation. Driven by his love of making, collaborating, solving complex problems in unconventional ways, and simply leaving the world a better, healthier, happier place, he's adept at using his design as a tool to tackle problems for those most in need. Now, Matthew is a true native of Texas, not just in stature, but with deep hill country roots tempering his otherwise hard New Yorker, or better yet, die-hard New Yorker sensibility. He studied architecture and art history as an undergraduate at Rice and received his Master's of Architecture from Yale, where in addition to the architectural design, he continued immersive studies in art history, cultural theory, and criticism. He's a self-described extroverted introvert. Please tell me more about that, knowing you. And addicted to travel, beauty, hiking, a good martini, and should I say spicy food. Now, when I was asked to do this intro tonight, one of the first things that came to mind to me was what the concoction of our fabled mixologists, David Moo and Toby Cecchiani, proprietors of the Long Island Bar, will come up with. So, David and Toby, what are we having tonight?
Thank you. We'll get to that in a couple of minutes. For those of you who don't know me, I'm David Moo. My colleague over here is Toby Cecchiani. He is actually the proprietor owner of the Long Island Bar in Brooklyn, where I've worked for a very long time. Coming up on 10 years next week, actually, I believe. For those of you who know me, I also used to own a different bar in Brooklyn until very recently. Anyway, here we are. We've been doing this for a very long time. We are tasked with coming up with a cocktail that somehow reflects the work and the biography and the tastes and interests of each of our sort of subjects, in this case, Matthew Bremer. And that is sometimes an easier and sometimes a more difficult task. It's interesting because today's task was actually, in a certain sense, made in some ways easier by a certain specific thing about what's going on with Matthew at the moment. As actually for the first time ever in the perhaps maybe 80 times that we've done this, it just so happens that the show that is on display here on this level of the Center for Architecture is in fact curated by Matthew. That show reflects one of Matthew's current particular concerns, which has to do with home. I'll get back to sort of the idea of home in a moment, but the meaning of home is very much on his mind at the moment, and that is going to lead us into our cocktail. Now, talking about sort of the excuse for using that as a way of getting into this, every single one of you, every single architect, I think, likes to talk in their mission statements on their websites about how their work is a reflection of the site and the use and the client and the budget. And it turns out that for a large, significant percentage of the architects in the world, that's not really true. But for certain architects, such as Matthew Bremer, it actually turns out that that is very much true. And if you look at the history of his work through images and whatever on the internet, it turns out that he really is actually responding in very, very specific ways to the needs of the specific situation that these buildings find themselves in. And because he doesn't have any particular tropes or particular sort of things that he does, that actually gives someone like us, people like us, less to latch onto in order to come up with something like, she does this thing, we're going to latch onto that, and that's going to become a metaphor for a set of drinks that we're going to try to create. But in this particular case, that is not actually true. But at the moment, the directive is that what Matthew is interested in is home, and not just home in some general sense, but home in these very specific senses, home in these intersectional senses, home as it pertains to the specifics of these particular groups of people, which is what this exhibit is about. And so that leads us to then thinking about home as a metaphor for a cocktail. But of course, we can't just do that as a general matter, because of course that would be totally different for every single human being in the world. And so how do we approach that? We decided to enter deeply into home for Matthew. And so that is how we have arrived at this. So there's a cocktail, there's a refreshment, let's say, that has become very popular in Texas, and especially in the west of Texas, that is called ranch water. And you find it around the country now, but it's just a simple refreshment that involves tequila and lime juice and maybe a little bit of sweetener, and what the nature of that sweetener is changes depending on who you ask. Or if it's there at all. And then specifically, well, soda water, but specifically not just soda water, but Topo Chico, which is, of course, the great soda water of Mexico. That led us, this is actually something that it turns out that is not only specific to the part of Texas that Matthew's from, but it also turns out to be exactly what Matthew orders when one asks, except that he's very specific about it. He doesn't just order a regular ranch water, he orders a ranch water with mezcal instead of tequila, and he orders a ranch water with lemon juice instead of lime juice. He's very particular about those being, he would drink a regular ranch water, but he's very particular that these are improvements on this formula. So we took that to heart and burrowed a little bit further into that, and that leads us to where we have arrived today, is this kind of like idea of home for Matthew Bremer. So how did we do that? We sourced with some difficulty some hatch chilies, which are not easy to get outside of New Mexico and West Texas as a general matter. And we infused some mezcal with those hatch chilies. And we then explored, we had this little exploration of using lemons or lemon flavoring. Actually, there's something else that I haven't said, which is that something that Matthew, something that he was particularly interested in saying is that if there's one thing that I would like to say about my own work is that I'm always searching for clarity. And so I was like, well, that's interesting because that can apply, therefore, to our drink as well. And the clarification of drinks is a whole thing that Toby and I largely eschew, but every once in a while, as in fact those of you who've been coming here for a long time might notice, we do actually go through the efforts to engage in what's called molecular mixology, and today is a minor example of that. So originally, we used some lemon spray that we have access to, which we decided in the end to go a little bit deeper for the following reason. I'll tell you this little side story. Toby, when we were talking about this, he was like, oh, well, ranch water, I mean, that's just like somebody takes a bottle of Topo Chico and they just like lengthen their margarita, right? And I was like, no, Toby, you're very wrong. it's its own thing, it's a highball, blah, 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 blah. And then I went away and I was like, you know what, I should probably do a little bit more research into the history of this drink. And it turns out that one of the major origin stories for ranch water is that indeed somebody took a little bit of soda water and they added it to their margarita. And then that leads you to think that maybe it shouldn't be lemon or lime. Honestly, maybe it should be orange, because that is in fact, of course a margarita is lime juice, but it also has this orange flavor to it. And so instead of doing this thing where we were, which is what this drink was until yesterday, to be honest, involved this lemon spray and then this acid adjustment, instead we have created clarified orange juice and acid-adjusted clarified orange juice. So that is in fact what this consists of. And then we've added a little bit of Cointreau, which is the sweetener in a margarita, which actually turns out is one of the things that people will sweeten their ranch water with. So with that, I think that's enough information. Here we go. This consists of 3/4 of an ounce of this chili, hatch chili infused mezcal, and 3/4 of an ounce of regular mezcal, and a 1/4 ounce of the acid-adjusted clarified orange juice, and I guess what Toby would probably call a soupçon of simple syrup. I'm sure he's glaring at me angrily right now. And the same small amount of Cointreau. So that's that. And then we will add some ice. Tight bubbles of Topo Chico. And I guess in this case, because I forgot to bring a spoon, I'll use this hatch chili as a spoon. And give it a nice lemon twist. And with that, we have, for Matthew Bremer, The Home on the Ranch.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Greg, for starters, and Jesse, and all of you here at the Center for Architecture, home of the New York chapter of the AIA, and more recently, last year, my home away from home, or home away from our studio, because I was here a lot. Thank you to the Architecture Dialogues Committee, for this Architecture Dialogues Committee of this AIA chapter for inviting me to participate in this most highly esteemed program of AIA. I've been a fan of it for years, and it's humbling, to say the least, to be a part of this tradition that includes so many of my greatest heroes, mentors, friends, and colleagues. And for those of you who know me, you might know that the spirit of these are a few of my favorite things, namely cocktails and conversation, is very apt. So, most importantly, thank you, Fred, in advance, for stepping in at the last minute when we found out Wendy Goodman had taken ill. I adore your journalism, and you have my profound respect for all you do for the climate crisis, particularly you're lifting the veil on embodied carbon and the disingenuousness of those claiming hyper-sustainability. Feel free to call me out for all that embodied carbon and all of these concrete buildings I'm about to show. Guilty. Penultimately, thank you, David, for psychoanalyzing me, where I come from, and how it informs my work. You nailed it. I apologize to all of you in advance for ranch water, particularly my ranch water. Don't worry, most people hate it. It's smoky, it's spicy. My husband, who's a major amateur mixologist, can't stand it, but tough. Lastly, this is where the slide up here catches up. Thank you to all the people whose names we see on the screen right now who have been central to architecture information. A bit over 20 years ago, I ventured out sort of on my own, way too soon, knowing way too little, but with a love of making and coordinating architecture and design. And that was sort of architecture and design with a big A and the big D, whatever that means, as well as a long-standing fascination with home, perhaps because at my heart, yes, I am an introverted, or an extroverted introvert. It's a thing, you can Google it. Home was something that I had thought about for all of my life, growing up, leaving, coming to New York from Texas, and I loved making homes. I always had, and I honestly always will. These people have all been very impactful. Nothing is done in architecture and design that's not hyper collaborative. So kudos to all of you all. Maybe AIFers stand up, past or present. A few of you. And a special shout out to Paulo Flores, who has believed with me and in me. This guy has the ability to teach himself absolutely anything, including all the stuff that I'm completely horrible at. He is the most audacious autodidact I've ever met. So thank you for working with me for the better part of 20 plus years and for allowing me to work with you. Clearly, 70% of this is you making sure that we don't F it up. So we love thinking about and celebrating those daily and nightly rituals that are played out in our domestic places. We love making houses. These have all been built. These are on the boards still. This is most of these are our own house, upstate New York, which was rethinking that old binary between the sacred and profane when we converted a 200-year-old church in the Catskills for a home for me, my husband, our dogs, and countless friends. Rituals matter to all of us. And in so doing and moving up there during a pandemic, and I came to realize that home really means community. And as the bottom three slides will attest, that community has actually brought on some kind of cool work, converting an old disused roadside motel to a hopefully cool boutique motel, starting up a fabulous little market cafe, and the hopefully soon to be funded, anybody want to donate 10 million or so, to Catskills Resort Museum that really will focus on humor and Jewish culture in the mid-century. We love making ceremonial entrances. We love creating spaces that are simply about going up or down in space, our home. We love doing stairs. We love that making an entrance. Maybe these are out of order. We love simply finding spaces to come together, or and come together and share, or to read quietly. We also love designing spaces around art. We love the pageantry of cooking. We love cooking, and love making central places to prepare meals together. We love the drama of dining, of elevating the food on the table with the light and the texture of the room. This instigates conversation and creates memories. Our most private spaces may be our most sensual. The architecture of the bedroom, the boudoir, the bathroom brings us into intimate relations with our own bodies and others' bodies. We believe that spaces where we spend an average of at least a third of our lives deserve to be transformative and restorative. And of course, best rooms in the house. We make sure that whenever we do a private custom project, we refuse to ever do an extraordinary kitchen and have dog bowls on the floor. But most importantly, we believe in a high level of design and execution for the making of home that should be a right that belongs to all. As our studios evolved, so have our interests and our values. We've really gotten into affordable housing, community development. We're just finishing up a community center in a NYCHA housing project on Staten Island that you won't see tonight, but you will soon. DDC doesn't want us to show anything until it's done, so take it up with them. But tonight I'll share two projects that are long in coming. You guys that have been with us, you're like, oh my God. 4 to 5 years, just wrapping up. They're really still in punch list. The photos are from an iPhone 13 mostly. Actually, it turned out better than the others, but no, we're actually like a couple months away from doing the real professional photography on these. So yeah, they may be a little grainy and a little sideways, but that's us. But they're literally just, move-in has just happened. One is, they're both dream projects in a way, and they're both dream projects for the people that live there. One is a family compound / kind of corporate retreat on the island of St. Kitts in the Caribbean. The other is 165 units of 100% affordable senior housing in Inwood, 30% of which were for formerly homeless population, and it was designed to passive house. Passive house. Yes. But like, what do these projects have in common other than that they took way too long and came out of our office? Well, they both were literally carved out of a hillside and into a hillside, part of the reason for the delays. And they both, I think, show a very similar way of thinking, our way of thinking. May not be the right way. In fact, I always say we always look for the exquisitely wrong answer. The sites for both were incredible. On the left is this empty hillside in Upper Manhattan. When do you ever get that? There are two phases to this project. The first we just completed was a teardown of an existing Baptist church, and we recreated the church within the facility, part of the community, part of the home for the seniors. And the other project is an incredible hilltop on St. Kitts with 360-degree views, north, south, east, west, looking east to the Atlantic, looking west to the Caribbean, looking south to Nevis, looking north to St. Bart's. It ain't so bad. We really wanted to just channel and envelop the sites as much as we could. More on that later. So this is St. Kitts. It's in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. It takes forever to get there. It's a much longer flight than I ever imagined. But it's really a pretty spectacular place. I'd never been there before we got this commission. These are panos looking in 3 of the 4 directions from the site, which was primarily mostly unbuilt. There are a few houses around it. The client had owned it for about 15 years and really wanted to create an incredible place to bring his extended family back to, as well as corporate leadership. The company is an extraordinary contracting firm that does huge amounts of commercial work and mill work, and like their coup de grace moment was that they got to build all of the mill work for the project. It also was about a 4 or 5 month delay because they were so busy they couldn't take on the project until they rolled out the stuff that was going to pay for it. Some images of the site, not so bad. And this is what we came up with. Only took us 4 or 5 years. A lot within the site, a lot coming without of the site. Dare I say, this house would not have existed, would never exist anywhere else other than here. We'll never do something like this again. Maybe like it, but there's a guest wing, which to make the house smaller, seems smaller than it actually is. And by current Hampton standards, it's actually a casita at 7,500 square feet. That's pretty small. But no, we wanted to, I hate bulky houses, I hate large houses. But for a large compound, and it really is a compound, it's really 3 buildings. There's the guest wing, which was submerged, the main house with all the main living features here, and of course the owner's suite, gets the sweet spot up above, and the rooftop is totally to die for. And then there's a caretaker's cottage down below under the parking court. There's a lot of, I think my travels channeled into this, trips to Iceland, walking through a few of Barragan's houses, particularly Casa Pedregal, which is not one of his most famous, but this incredible family compound built onto a lava field outside of Mexico City stopped me dead in my tracks, and I've been back to it 3 times since I first visited it. We just got to have a lot of fun with this. The house is concrete, as everything on the island is. Sorry, Fred, no mass timber, not a lot of trees on St. Kitts. But a good thing I can say is all of the concrete and concrete block literally comes from just down the mountain. So, it's not like it was imported, but I'm not going to claim that this is like a hyper-sustainable house with, no embodied carbon. There's a lot of embodied carbon. But it is like, this thing will sustain, like, will withstand a Hurricane 47, Category 47 hurricane. It's not going anywhere, so it'll outlive all of us, which was very much the intent. We call this the viewfinder compound for obvious reasons. The shape, while there may be some affinity to organics and it looking like something that kind of swam out of the sea or whatever, it really was about framing very specific views. And I'm kind of thrilled that we didn't screw up any of those views. And the way you move through this house is really pretty magical. Front door. The client asked us for a castle door, which at first we're like, okay, we've done this totally super modernist thing. We're like, yeah, we didn't want to like kitsch it out, but I think we did a pretty cool interpretation of a castle door, I hope. We brought in, the railings are all boat hardware. All the material is as raw and natural and of the site as it possibly can be. The floors are just polished concrete with all the pulling all the aggregate in from the local aggregate. It really does feel like it is of the place. Yes, all the millwork and furnishings and all that kind of stuff were shipped in, so yeah, some carbon footprint there. But it does come from a place. It's about back to home. It's about the owner's home and how they made this incredible living doing extraordinary work in the construction industry, primarily millwork. And yeah, all these stones, it was so much fun. It's not like true to Albert Frey. It's not like we found the stone exactly there and built a house around it. We moved the stones, so maybe we cheated a little bit, but I think they're pretty sculptural. So if you don't like it, yeah, it's okay. You don't have to like my mezcal drink either. But I do like this house. I'd live there. These are all images of the owner's quarters on the upper level. Speaking of I'd live there. Like, why leave, ever? In developing the crazy weird section of this house, like we found all of these little weird carve-out spaces. So outside the primary suite shower is this, incredible balcony that frames a view of the town down below, Basse-Terre. And it's their own balcony. No one else will ever go up there. It is the perfect frame view. And it's one of many. Like we actually did, it's a good thing about working so much in 3D and in the computer and, modeling everything. Like what you see in the end is sort of what you've been seeing on screen for years and years and years. These are the underground guest wings. The light in the bathrooms is absolutely magical. Each of the showers and vanity areas are skylit. It's a nice place to shower. And then the coup de grace moment is the roof terrace, some images of which are there. A lot of the furniture for it is still coming on the last boat, and then after the last boat comes, then we'll actually take the real photos. But it was pretty great to go and do an install 2 weeks ago. Not so bad. These are other views. Now, up to Inwood. Little bit of cognitive dissonance. Welcome to working in our office. This is Fort Tryon Park, for those of you who know Upper Manhattan. It's absolutely as gorgeous, if not more, than the island of St. Kitts. You've got the Hudson. You've got all this extraordinary stonework. You've got all of these Manhattan schist, incredible outcroppings, and you've got extraordinary seasonality. That, quite frankly, was the inspiration for our project. That and just to be able to house about 200 New Yorkers who were desperately, senior New Yorkers who were desperately in need of housing, 30% of whom were formerly homeless. We didn't want to do brick. In fact, one of the HPD reviewers, HPD being Housing Preservation Development, people that build this affordable housing, she was like, why don't you just use the HPD brick that everybody does? I was like, I think you just answered your own question. Right? Somehow, we actually managed to get a copper, standing seam metal copper facade approved through HPD and funded. And there was a lot of sort of poetry about wanting to use a material that was just going to age gracefully. And it was amazing when the scaffolding came down. I went over there a couple days later, and it was just like shining. It was like mirror polished. It's already so dulled down, and No one knows exactly what it'll become, which we think is pretty beautiful. And then the base is as close to the local stone as we could get. And then the sides. This is going to be a phase. There's going to be a phase 2. We certainly hope. Currently pipelined for us. That'll be affordable family housing that'll attach onto this. But every building in New York gets a great street facade and no side facade. Why can't the whole thing look like a really fun pair of socks? It wasn't that much more money, so stripes. Here you can see these are early diagrams of phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 is what the project I'm showing right now, complete. Phase 2 will have these 2 armatures that sort of climb up the hill. And one thing we learned on phase 1 is don't build into the hill as much as you can. We lost a year and about $10 million in foundations. Yeah. It was the geotech where they thought the rock was not accurate, and it took a long time. We spent an extra year in the ground getting this. So we're hoping that the next phase will sort of sit on these point loads. So the courtyard, looking out, again, framing the view that we hope will remain. It'll become landscaped. In the subsequent phases, it's hard to take out what is right now a forest. But our landscape architect, who has subsequently become the director of ecology for New York City Parks, told us there aren't any trees that are really worth saving. We'll redo it better, and the ecology around the place will be better for it. Don't feel guilty. I'm like, okay, I don't feel guilty. So as you can see, we're not color phobic in our studio, and working with senior populations, a lot of whom have, will develop memory, cognitive issues. Color and wayfinding and super graphics and all those things become very important. So bringing in the sort of natural colors of seasonality and change from, we saw in the park, each floor has this very bright, vibrant, and identifiable color, and it looks pretty great at night. It'll look better once things start to grow in. We bring that nature in to the lobby. This is the entry lobby. When we have this, I think it came from designing really, really small spaces. In our office, we just want to make everything hyper function. So it's sort of a library / co-working space, but it's really meant to be a shared space. The mail room, we really try to get people on the stairs as much as we can, by painting them crazy vibrant colors and putting sayings from, that are meant to inspire, and getting as much daylight into these stairwells as possible. We even found some woodworkers who we're working with on some other private projects who had just taken out some giant ash trees on one of our sites, and he was able to make these for about $650. Not as much as the listed Donald Judd ones. So, be a good copyist. I don't know. Each floor we're very proud of because how do you create identity in these long hallways that we try to get natural light into? It doesn't always work. I would love to be able to get my goal is to do a single loaded corridor in affordable housing before I die. I'm not holding my breath. We're trying. But we're trying, at these entries, we call this the front porch that is compressed into 4 inches, where people can customize it. They can put a little memento, a picture, a tchotchke, something on it that is identifiable as theirs. And the units, home. they've just been moving in the last few weeks, and makes us very, very happy. Talk about why you do what you do. There's a lot of pride in, in these places. Lastly, our scale model, somewhere around here, is I wanted to highlight the CFA LAB. If you didn't get a chance to look at the exhibition that is in the L-shaped gallery behind us, please do. I got the pleasure of and honor of co-curating it as part of my presidential theme, and I did so with Vi Rao, who is a social anthropologist teaching at the School of Architecture at Yale. She's amazing. We had so much fun. There was a competition for the residents of the CFA LAB. It was 60. There were 60 submissions, and we had to pick 3. It was very daunting. I never would have gotten selected, but the 3 we selected were around the concept of seeking refuge and making home in NYC. And we were looking through it, particularly through the lens of populations that are disenfranchised, that had been minorities, the poor, the outside. And we had 3 residents who developed 3 separate installations that you can see right out here on the queer home, the black home, and the undocumented home. And that's, the homes for undocumented families. Pretty powerful stuff. These 3 came up with really, really amazing projects that are incredibly thought-provoking. I won't go into it. I want you to look at it. They're extraordinary, and it was one of the most fun things I got to do last year. And I'm sad that it's coming down, but onward. There we go. And I hope I did okay. I hope I didn't run too long. Oh, you have more than 3 minutes, which is what you had with Toshiko, so we win. Let's do this. I'm bringing my drink. No.
I have Parkinson's disease, by the way. I'm not drunk.
Oh.
I've only had 2 sips.
Ah.
But I did just almost trip over the chair. So it's great to be here. Thank you so much. The theme tonight is home. And I realize that you, Greg, and Matt, and Jesse, and so many others have made this somewhat cold building a home over the years. When I first came here, was it 25 years ago?
Yeah.
It was
20.
not.
We're celebrating 20 this year.
Microphone. When I first came here, it did not feel much like a home, and that's really changed over the years. I mean that very sincerely. I feel very comfortable here with the people and the way it's evolved into a real gathering place for the profession. Greg, thank you for the very nice introduction. Thank you for comparing me to the Renaissance, or I should say calling me a Renaissance man, but don't be so hard on the Renaissance next time. The Renaissance deserves more credit than that. Your presentation was beautiful, and it really was thought-provoking. And the reason it was thought-provoking was I'd have to think really hard about which place I'd rather live in. And I really mean that. One of them is 7,000 or 8,000 square feet, I think, has every possible amenity, and the other doesn't. But only one of those projects has a chance of becoming a community or creating community. Rich people more and more want to be behind gates or live in doorman buildings with all kinds of security. You don't see rich people sitting out on their stoops chatting. As society has become wealthier, or should I say as the wealthy parts of society have become wealthier, it's been harder and harder to create community. I'm not in favor of poverty, but the people who live in your building in Inwood are likely to form a real community. And the people who spend their time on St. Kitts will never know their neighbors.
True.
I can't hear you, I'm sorry. They don't have any neighbors. So more and more I see houses that are 6,000, 8,000, 10,000, 20,000 square feet for people who say they have lots of friends and relatives who are going to come visit. And I always think, isn't that what hotels are for? But it's not just because they're walling themselves off, it's also because of the embodied energy which you brought up, so I can't not talk about that. Yes. I've become known as something of a scold because I've been writing a lot about embodied energy and exposing a lot of what I think is rampant hypocrisy. So Matt was worried that I would complain about the embodied energy in his St. Kitts house because...
I was hoping he would.
Hoping I'd be outraged?
Yeah.
Okay.
We deserve it.
So it's made of concrete, which of course is very high in embodied energy or embodied carbon. Everything that's there was brought there. I know you said the concrete was made on the island, but some of the ingredients had to be brought there.
Of course.
And everything else was flown
Not the
there.
heavy ingredients.
And, I'm sorry?
Not the heavy ingredients.
Right, and
It's a stretch.
And everybody who spends time in that house will fly there, and so it's a mess in terms of its carbon footprint. But Matthew didn't claim otherwise, which is why I'm okay with it. I can't change the world. People are still going to build big houses, no matter what we do. What I don't like is the hypocrisy of people claiming their houses are green. And I get press releases every day from architects who have built 16,000 square foot houses on Nantucket. On Nantucket, everything has to be brought over by ferry or flown over. The workers fly back and forth every day. And they claim the house is green because they use a little bit of bamboo for the kitchen cabinets. And it's that kind of greenwashing that I just can't stand. I wish people didn't build those big houses. I wish they didn't, but they're going to, but at least we need to talk about these things honestly.
I completely agree. It's really interesting. There's so much, like, in the Hamptons happening. Friend, colleague, Margie Ruddock, I think she was going to be here tonight, amazing landscape architect.
Right, great.
Is starting, basically moved her practice into a nonprofit. And she's very aligned with an organization called Build in Kind East Hampton that's really trying to rewrite the zoning. You know, no giant houses. You know, no LEED platinum 16,000 square foot houses.
Right. So everybody knows that's one of the problems with LEED.
Right.
If you check off enough boxes, it doesn't matter how wasteful the building is.
Right.
So you can build a 30,000 square foot house in the Sonora Desert.
And what's amazing, what you've
essentially air condition it, and you can still get LEED platinum.
100%.
If you have bike racks.
Right.
So, is anybody here offended? I hope not. Some of you may be LEED professionals, and there's certain value to LEED. I agree, but it's not what it should be. And I have people tell me that their buildings are net zero. Well, net zero is not zero. Net is a very funny word, but Norman Foster is putting up, well, he's finished one building on Park Avenue and he's putting up another, which is the new J.P. Morgan Chase headquarters at 270 Park. It's 1,300 feet, much taller than the Empire State Building, and they're calling it net zero.
Look at what they tore down.
The first one they tore down a 600 foot, I think 52-story building, Union Carbide. So that's problem number one. Number two is the resources, the materials going into the new building are just incalculable. That's part of the problem. Embodied energy is often incalculable. It's very hard to get an exact number. And some people say we shouldn't really worry about it because we can't quantify it exactly, which is like saying if you're on a diet, it's still okay to eat a whole chocolate cake if you don't know how many calories are in it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good idea, right? We know that we know there's an incredible amount of embodied energy or carbon in 270 Park Avenue, and calling it net zero is basically crazy. And I'm trying to write about that, but do magazines or newspapers really want to publish those articles? Not all the time.
But it's so important that you're doing it. No, we all try to use all this kind of stuff, and we're thrilled to have done a passive house building and blah blah blah. But like we had to build this, these buildings out of concrete. We're hoping that within 5 to 10 years that mass timber is going to be up with.
Who's that? Mass timber is no panacea.
No,
it's better than concrete. It's better than steel.
Well, what's the panacea? Not building.
Well, panacea is not building, which is why.
Which
is why I think they need to put the number of the suicide hotline at the end of my articles, because architects get very depressed when I speak, and I don't mean to depress anybody, but I mean if we really cared about mitigating global warming, we would stop building. But none of us want
reuse, baby.
None of us want to stop building, and we're not going to stop building.
Right.
I just want people to tell the truth about what they're doing, so we can have an honest conversation. And if we're supposed to believe that a 1,400 foot tower on Park Avenue is net zero, then we're not having an honest conversation.
Isn't that what they also claim the Apple donut was?
Oh yeah, that's how I got started on this
with
whole thing.
With every round window shipped in from Switzerland.
Yeah, from Spain and Germany, and I got interested in this topic when Apple. We need to talk about you though, not about me. When Apple started claiming that its donut in Cupertino was the greenest building in the world, and I started looking at first they tore down 22 buildings, useful buildings.
And probably communities where people lived.
Well, it was industrial, but 22 buildings they tore down. And then they brought in materials, vast amounts of steel and glass from all over the world. Nothing came from this country. Some things were processed in 3 or 4 different countries before they got here. And they claimed it was the greenest building in the world. And I said that if you start to think about the embodied energy, it's possibly the least green building in the world. And I got into a debate with Norman Foster about it. He promised to get me some numbers. This is 7 years ago. I have his personal email address, and Norman is a brilliant man. I admire him, and he's very courteous. And 7 years ago, we had a bit of a discussion, and he promised to get me numbers to prove that the Apple headquarters in Cupertino is really a very green building, and then I never heard from him again. And now they're claiming that the JP Morgan Chase headquarters on Park Avenue is a very green building, which is just ludicrous. And,
ludicrous.
So maybe we need that building, maybe we don't, but we can't call it green. So, and you, to your credit, have not claimed that the house in St. Kitts is green.
And it's not about, that project is not about need.
Right.
I mean, the other one is.
Right.
But I think my point was that it's just as easy to, I hope, deploy really, really thoughtful design on a really tight budget for the most in need as it is to have like the sort of dream project on a mountaintop, blah, blah, blah.
Right. You have a little bit of discretionary funding. I mean, you can do the stripes on the side wall, or
it's always a give and take.
You have to
Paulo, who is still finishing up punch list, and we still have some FF&E budgets to resolve. Everything is a give and take. If you if it goes in one pot, it gets pulled out of another. It's really tough. But one thing that I always say, people have in our office have heard it 1,000 times, is it's just as easy to do a really, really great building, and it costs no more. In fact, building a really crappy building is more expensive in the end.
In the long term, for
Yeah.
sure. But a lot of people don't think long term.
No, absolutely not. No, I mean, I think there's I'd like to think there's a universality for good design. You know, whatever that means. I mean, we know in 2024, good design is like, you know, I mean, it's something totally different to my dear friend Vinka than me. We couldn't design more differently, but I love her work, and yeah, it's all, you know, part and parcel, you know.
No, but I think you bring up a really important thing, and it's actually that for some weird reason people think that good design and beauty is expensive. Right. And I think you have to, they don't record you. I'm happy you need that. You're gonna turn them on for a video. Well, anyway, I'm happy you need that. Yeah, of course. Okay, I was just saying that I really love what Matt just said, is that it's crazy that in New York, if you try and do social housing and you design something beautiful, they typically won't build it because they don't believe you that it's cheap. Whereas it's completely, what you're saying is like totally true. It's completely possible to build something really beautiful for very little money. Right. It's actually brokers who make it expensive. So yeah, because they declare it. No, but they declare it whatever on art piece. Yeah.
Broker makes it expensive.
No, but it's just, they're not expensive. They declare it an art piece. And then
Yeah.
sell it.
Right. So
Make it expensive, they sell it.
I've been
True.
thinking a lot about the fact that Matthew does housing for very rich people and also housing for poor people. And isn't that odd? But maybe it's great because maybe you should only be allowed to do housing for poor people after you've done housing for rich people, because you develop all the design ideas, the expertise, you know, it looks good,
Right.
and then you can bring that to the low-income housing on a budget,
One hopes.
on hopes.
One thing that's interesting, and I forget who, we were having a conversation recently, and we were talking about, you know, multifamily design and construction in New York, and the bottom line is affordable housing buildings get built so much better than the developer-driven market rate luxury. I mean, yeah, we've done some where like, yeah, and the real reason is that developers are in there to make the quickest buck, the biggest buck, turn it over quickly, and someone else is going to own it in 9 months.
Right.
Whereas when you're building affordable housing or supportive housing, those are being built, generally, they're going to be run by nonprofits who are invested in the building forever. So it's in their interest to A, minimize the electric bill. So that's why we're able to do passive house, because they realize, oh, this thing can like almost use, you know, very, very, very little energy.
Don't get me started on the embodied energy in passive house buildings.
Oh yeah,
Because there's
it's
a lot
huge.
of embodied energy in the insulation, the glazing,
Right.
and so on. And sometimes it's even worse. Well, I said don't get me started, so don't get me started.
Well, yeah, they're embodied energy in like the 8 million human beings. You know, I think it goes back to like overpopulation. We're going to keep building, right? We have
Well,
to. Yeah. That's probably really depressing.
I
We won't
agree
get
with
into
you,
that.
but I don't think we should talk about that.
No.
Right now.
No,
Yeah.
agreed.
So the timeline on both of those projects was quite long. Can you
Yes.
say why? The same reasons or different reasons?
Very similar. In fact, a global pandemic.
Uh-huh.
I would say delayed each of them 12 to 18 months. In St. Kitts, there was a shutdown brought on by martial law of the government. You weren't
Really?
allowed to leave your house, meaning no ships came
Because
in,
of
no
COVID.
ships because of COVID. They had no cases for the better part of like 9 months when New York was spiking. So of course our owner's rep and construction manager could not get in. That was not, the project was not going to get built without him. So yeah, that was a huge delay. And honestly, the foundations on both were longer than projected. I mean, building into a hillside, I think that was sort of why I was sort of interested in pairing these two projects. And especially on the hillside project, that projected the better part of an extra year. Wow. And that's something that they generally does not happen. I mean, they can build these things in 24 months, and they have to. Like, the contractor starts to lose money and gets really grumpy, the cities and the state and everybody who's funding this gets really grumpy, and they try to deliver it really quickly. So yeah.
Who owns the low-income housing? You said they're run by nonprofits, and I knew that.
Yeah.
But are the same nonprofits the owners?
Yes, not always, but very often the developers stay involved all the way through, which is a lot of the reason that they're better built,
Right.
because they're going to own it forever.
Right.
Yeah.
I know with private developers, if the tax code makes selling after a decade or two advantageous.
No, with these, they
With
will.
private developers.
Right.
Yeah. Which means people don't build private buildings to last. Because they don't
Right.
have to, which is just
Right.
hideous. That
Yeah.
The tax code affects the lifetime of
Yes.
building. Yeah, Wink is nodding her head. Several people are nodding their heads. So, yeah, the tax code has made our buildings impermanent, which is crazy.
Oh, it's awful, but it's just sort of taking our bigger buildings, our multifamily buildings, and bringing them closer to what they've been doing in post-war tract houses, you know.
By the way,
Decades.
I thank Greg, and I thank you, and I thank several people. I forgot to thank David Moo. Are you back there with the drinks? David Moo gave an amazing presentation on the drinks, but also
Right.
I noticed that he's a voice actor. Did you see that?
Oh.
And I could use a voice actor right now because I'm kind of losing my voice. So maybe I could whisper it to David's ear and he could repeat what I...
Not as much as Wendy, so.
Not as much as Wendy, right.
You drew the short
Wendy
straw.
Goodman, right. So, but David was fantastic, and David should be an architecture critic because what he said about architects' websites and the difference between the rhetoric and the reality was very astute. Very astute. He's read a lot of websites because he comes up with the drinks. So he knows about mission statements and, yeah. What'd you say? A lot of architects, yeah, who have, yeah. So, I mean, context is a really important thing in architecture. But everybody talks about context, even if the building is completely anti-contextual.
Right, and, you know, I mean, you look around at our two buildings, they don't look anything like any of the other buildings around there. But I don't think that's really what context means.
That's right.
So. Q&A, sure.
We're ready for a Q&A?
Sure.
Thank you. Just before we start the Q&A, I wanted to say a couple of things. One is to first thank our sponsors for tonight, American Metalcraft. Thank you very much, and you'll be sponsoring the next Cocktails in Conversation as well. And there are two more coming up, so thank you, American Metalcraft. Please note on your calendar, April 5th, we are having another Cocktails in Conversation with legendary James Wines in conversation with Philip Denny about artificial intelligence.
Philip.
And yes,
Philip.
yeah, Philip Denny.
If Philip Denny is sick that night, I'm available.
Thank you so much. And
Hard to believe that James actually is an expert on artificial intelligence.
yes.
Yeah. Good night.
He has a very
Yeah.
strong point of view, let's say. And on May 17th, we will be having a very special cocktail celebration with Jonathan Marvel. Jonathan Marvel will be honored with the Medal of Honor next month by the chapter, and we are delighted to be able to have him for cocktails on May 17th. So please note the date as well.
Who's
on that.
questioning him?
don't
That
know
hasn't
yet.
been determined yet.
If you're available,
If everybody else is sick, I'm available.
Well, actually, the only other time
you know, be
this has
careful what
happened-
you wish for, Fred, because you might find yourself eventually, you know, at the extra seat at, you know, the formerly Heritage Ball.
Yes, I happen to know Paul Goldberger will be sick
Yes.
that night.
Well, the only other time, at least in my memory, that this has happened is with Winga, when Michael Kimmelman came down with COVID the day before, and Tom Main came and then
That's
we
quite
and then we flipped it.
Yes, we flipped
And
it.
so it was actually terrific, all in all. So,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So it was lots of fun. So we have, I think, about 15 minutes for questions
Before they
and
clean up.
answers. Do you have one right here?
Hi, thank you. It was really interesting, both of you, and I really liked seeing your projects. Oh, you're good. Speaking of, okay. So it made me wonder why you decided to become an architect.
That was
Well-
a plant.
I already established that I'm a masochist, so no. Right?
It's the community. It's home.
No, it's the community, it's home. It's like all the cliche stuff. I love drawing, I love painting. I loved space. My mother was a school principal. She was my elementary school principal. And she brought open classroom concept, which was very controversial back in the 70s, to our rural community in Texas. And so all those conservative ladies in Texas were out to get my mom fired. And I was so intrigued by how you could just rearrange all these classrooms and as a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, how radically just rearranging where the teacher was relative to the students, I found that fascinating. Yeah, here I am, oops. Maybe my mom should have been a bank teller. My life might have ended up different.
That's what the community probably thought. This is a question for Fred. Fred, you've been very hard on embodied energy and net zero buildings. In your criticism, are you taking into account the amortization of energy savings over the life of the building?
The
Amortization, how much energy the building is saving compared to a baseline building over a 40-year.
Of course. The whole comparison is how much embodied energy went into the building, particularly the green features of the building,
No, I understand.
versus how much energy will be saved.
Over the life of the building.
Over the life of the
Not-
building.
Not at the initial cost of the building. It's a life cycle analysis, not a one-off, one opening analysis. So the amortization, the amount of energy that the building is saving compared to the baseline building when it's built is what needs to be compared. So I would ask you to rethink your analysis.
I'm not getting it, and I'm not. You can explain it to me later. I'm not getting it. Okay. Well, life cycle. I mean, one of the green features of 270 Park Avenue, this gigantic skyscraper by Norman Foster, is that it's designed so that when it reaches the end of its life cycle, the materials can be recycled. Right, like they're going to tear down at the 1,400-foot building. I think if that'll happen in 100 years, and if that's something we have to factor in, we're in trouble. We may not have 100 years, but that's,
Okay,
yeah, okay. That's the issue, unfortunately.
I'm going to switch back to Matt. Hey, Matt.
Hi, Nana.
So I wanted to bring this up as a part of Matt's past, where I don't know what year this was, 15 years ago? When we started New York New Practices.
Oh, right.
Matt wasn't an AIA member then, or had maybe even any glimmer of being AIA. I'm not sure.
It was
But-
expensive.
Yeah, exactly. So Matt was one of the first group of New York New Practices. Is that still going? I don't even know. Yes?
It is. No, it's gone on every 2 years. We're actually in the process of kind of retooling it. I'm a firm believer that everything needs reinvention after
Yeah.
a certain number of
Probably
years.
time.
So that they had gone on every 2 years, I think, until 2020 or 2022. No, 2020. And so we're actually kind of rethink. We didn't do 22, and we're
So Matt was one of the original
New Practice
groupies
winners.
or selections.
And Winka was on the jury,
Winka
but we
was
didn't
on
know
the
each other.
jury.
And maybe I should apply because
And then he became president of that for a while and really spearheaded that. So
Right.
do you think that was instrumental in developing your career? That program?
New practices, absolutely. In fact, because of new practices, that's actually how we got into affordable housing. We actually got a sort of a big break on our navy green supportive housing building, which was our first affordable housing building. It was great. We loved it. We won like every AIA award and all this stuff. And we tried to break every rule we possibly could in housing. And that was really because Mark Strauss at FX Collaborative, he was working on an RFP with the developers and invited he talked to the developers into bringing in one of the new practice winners into the competition. And the developers wanted to work with us, and we won the project, and so we got one of the 4 towers on the site, which was pretty cool.
That? What year?
2007?
And what year did I write about you for the New York Times?
2007.
Wow.
Wow,
Okay.
that was a banner year.
Yeah, banner year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then we went to sleep for 15 years, I don't know.
Hardly.
So you mentioned single-loaded corridor at one point during your presentation.
Yes.
I'm curious about your thoughts about the IBC restrictive egress requirements for 2 stairs, and if you think maybe a single stair or single egress stair like they do in Europe might be something that architects and affordable housing planners should be advocating for.
No. I mean, I'm not out to say, anything that compromises health, safety, welfare, and getting out of a building that's probably not going to burn because it's sprinklered and non-combustible materials, blah, blah, blah. But I don't believe that it's necessarily just egress that is driving that. I've been in many a meeting with the developers who, yes, they always say it's about the 2 means of egress, but it's really about money. And actually, I'm still, we're shortlisted for a project, a big affordable housing project in Austin right now, and that's a place where we really have the ability to possibly do something single-loaded, or at least that busts open a lot more daylight. We're even thinking about doing maybe exterior, open, unconditioned corridors because it's Austin. We can, where ventilation comes through. But then you have more embodied energy because you have to wrap all the envelopes. So it's actually tricky. But for instance, I love what my colleagues Soil are doing. Jinglu and
In Brooklyn.
Oh yeah,
Fantastic, right?
I mean, those are super glamour, luxury. But the developer really gets it and is letting them do some incredible stuff.
The developer, of course, is Tom Main's son.
There's that.
But just a trivia fact.
There's that.
It's great. Just a trivia fact.
Right?
Were there any other features that you built specific to seniors being the audience for the Inwood building?
I couldn't make out all of that.
Sorry. Were there any other features that you incorporated to the Inwood building that were specific to seniors being the residents?
Yeah. A lot of handrails, which sounds, but it's, it's a real thing, trying to make the corridors as open as possible. Really doing, I'm always up for, let's sacrifice half a dozen units and do more shared spaces. And because affordable housing is funded on a per unit basis, they're always out to squelch that. But during this whole process, my mother moved into a senior community in Texas. And it's, even though I hate the architecture, it's like Texas Tuscan,
Texas Tuscan, that's good.
Yeah. It's like a, vomitorium architecture. It looks like Las Vegas threw up. But there were so many features that were sensitive to seniors,
Everyone's a critic.
right? There were so many things that were sensitive to her. Like, she's never been healthier, never been happier. She had never gardened in her life. She's treasurer of the garden club. We do have raised planter beds, not raised like a foot, raised like 3 feet on the rooftop. We have a lot of classrooms that are multi-purpose. There are cooking class rooms. I believe I showed some of these multi-purpose rooms. It looks like a there's a room that looks like a Starbucks that's like a cafe where they can go in, have coffee in the morning, and then cook and learn new recipes, do yoga, blah blah blah.
So Matt, I wanted to say congrats for both of the projects. They're great. And I did want to say, one of the biggest things, whether it's a hotel or an apartment building, is hallways. It's one of my big pet peeves. And I have to congratulate you, aside from the floral pattern on the carpet, which is totally wacky. I like the idea, good wacky. The idea of front dooring was really unusual. And had you seen it somewhere else before, or you invented it for them? And how did you convince them to do it?
Oh yeah, it's totally original.
No, I'm just asking.
Are we talking
Nothing.
about the porch?
The porch.
No,
Nothing's
Fabulous.
original.
Fabulous.
No, but in a hallway,
Oh, yeah.
in a hallway like that, I've not seen it. In that kind of where you carved out and you made a little shot.
It's ripped off from somewhere and reappropriated.
It's,
nothing's original.
It's
Admit it.
truly great, and if you didn't invent it, but you were smart enough to copy it from someone, that's fabulous. Right? That's fabulous.
I agree.
Sorry, hi.
Next main project?
Well, I don't want to jinx it because we're, our pipeline is is extensive right now, which is wonderful. But as soon as I mention something, usually that means the next day it's going to go on hold.
Or someone in this room is going to steal it.
That's fine.
That's
well,
fine, okay.
But
No one in this room would do that.
no, we've actually got quite a few affordable projects pipelined. We're doing, we have quite a few. It's funny. We're doing less homes, private apartments and stuff like that in the city, but we have a good number of projects out east, upstate, renovations, new builds.
Churches, that could be a niche.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, exactly. Yeah. We call our house the house of dog because it was a house of God. But now I'm dyslexic, so.
Hi. Just curious, what was the relationship or how was the collaboration with the landscape architects for both projects?
Oh, yeah. Well, who and how we collaborated?
How it happened? What was the compromise or
Oh.
talking about all this
Yeah.
energy embodiment and a tree harbors a lot of carbon dioxide. So when
Yeah.
you cut it,
Well, the landscape architect for the senior project in Inwood is a wonderful guy. Had a small firm that he actually closed during the project, and he took a job to become the director of ecology for New York City parks. And he was really fantastic. He had a wonderful, really thoughtful approach. The photos you saw tonight are were all taken in the dead of winter. Everything was planted in November, so it's only going to get better. But he made me quite happy when he said you shouldn't feel too guilty about the fact that you're going to be leveling that forest right outside for phase 2 because they're not, they're invasive trees and we will replant with healthier species. I'm like, okay, great. The St. Kitts project was really interesting. Obviously that project is all about landscape. We had pretty much really thought through the landscape in our design process. I'd wanted to pull somebody, some landscape architects in that I was, had great relationships with. In the end, we actually collaborated with the contractor who had done about a dozen projects on that island and other islands with Raymond Jungels, who is like the super famous Miami, tropical architect, sort of in the spirit of Burle Marx, yes. And honestly, the landscape went a little more tropical, dare I say, than I was hoping. We're on the arid side of the island, and like when you looked at the photos, it was like grasses and a little more, not to say deserty, but simple. And there's a lot. We had to block out some neighbors that you don't see in the photos, but honestly, so we did need the palm trees and a few other things. But the landscape has a lot of razzmatazz. It's beautiful. I love it in some ways, but we weren't building down in the rainforest, so
I think we
collaboration.
should wrap up, and I think Stephen, are you going to do it?
I just wanted, go ahead.
We are a tag team, the two of us, and we work together. Cheers. But anyway, this is an interesting program because we honestly I think we have more former presidents of the AIA New York chapter in this audience than in the other 71, except that Greg left, but he meant well. And I think that's some sort of record, and I think we also have two, at least, people who did cocktails before. So if you have any brilliant ideas for the next season, do let us know.
Although we're doing pretty good for this year.
Well, we'll do better with their help.
And as Greg said, this is our 71st cocktails. This is the first of 2024, and it kicks off our 12th year overall. So I want to thank.
No more books.
We wanted to. I'm sorry that Greg left. We wanted to thank him very much and hope he returns to help do more introductions. A very special thank you to Fred for
This
over
is
the
the
past,
easiest.
over the
Fred.
past 24 hours.
This
24
is the
hours
world's
ago.
easiest gig.
And a very special to our friend Matt, who we talked about this last summer in August at Drinks at Toby's Bar,
We
and to
take
be
the
able to make this
presidents
happen has been terrific.
to the bar.
Yes.
At the beginning of their term, we take them to Toby's bar. Well, they're supposed to see how nice we are and what a great committee it is. Nobody remembers anything afterwards, so it's okay.
And that's always better over drinks. We're so
People
much
remember
nicer.
the first time I did one of these, it was James and Hayes Slade. And I'm not bragging. I hope it doesn't come off that way. A year later, they told me that some of the questions I asked them during this program caused them to completely rethink how they run their practice and what their priorities are. That was amazing. That was so moving for me.
Matt, share that with them. Keep us posted.
Thanks, everybody.
I'm not changing anything.
Thank you, everybody.